Hello, welcome to another edition of Livestream Insiders, and you know what? It is episode 150. I'm Peter Stewart, and my co-host is Krishna Day.
Thanks everybody for joining us here for Livestream Insiders. It's great to be back, and we've got a slightly different format for the show this week. And one of the things that we're going to do is Peter's going to talk to you a little bit about that. But if you're new to Livestream Insiders, one of our goals is to give you the latest news, tools, technologies, tips in terms of live video. And we've been doing this for now 3 years. A partnership that actually started on Periscope and has continued onto different platforms. And the weekly show is now hosted on Facebook. And who knows where we'll be in 3 years' time. Whatever platforms will be developed, you can be sure that we'll be trying them out. We like to share with you the best practice tools and technologies, particularly if you're looking at integrating live audio, live video into your marketing communications, social selling. It could be employee engagement programs or even for crisis management. And Peter brings his experience in terms of in journalism for many years, and I bring my experience in terms of communications and digital comms within large organizations and small, even fast technology startups. We bring that together in terms of the tips that we share with you. I also will say that if you miss any of the things that we're talking about, there's always going to be a replay for you. And in addition, we give you a link to any resources that support the episode of the show. But anyway, let me pass it back to yourself, Peter, in terms of telling people what we've been thinking about in terms of the show going forward.
Well, episode 150, so we thought it was a good opportunity just to revisit, you have a little look, do a bit of housekeeping and maybe freshen things up a little bit. So instead of our usual 30 minutes, we're going to see if we can cut that down a little bit to nearer 15 minutes. And partly because we've noticed that over the past couple of months at least, there have been fewer big announcements. There are fewer really extraordinary and unusual case studies. There's fewer stories around. There's less news about live streaming. So instead of us struggling to fill up 30 minutes, we thought we'd cut things down to nearer, as I say, 15 minutes and just give you the very best possible stories. And also not just necessarily live stream, but I think perhaps sometimes where we've missed out a little bit in the past is what to do about promoting a live stream, or how to back promote or post produce a once live stream once it's pre-recorded video. So we're going to be looking a little bit at that as well. So pre-production and post-production as well. So as I say, a slight shift in emphasis, and we certainly welcome your feedback about the new direction. As I say, a little bit of a spring clean for the autumn and winter season here in the UK. So first of all, a couple of news headlines, and what you may have realised is that Twitter has made a few changes. One quite big change, and that is for its live streaming services. So now they've made it easier for people who are following you to see your live stream, because now when accounts you follow go live, or when you go live yourself, other people will see that live stream at the top of their timeline. So they'll be able to catch your breaking news or your live stream out and about, or whether or not it's just a piece to camera in a kind of a studio setting such as this. It's rolling out now. It's available on iOS and Android. And you know what, Krishna, it strikes me that I wonder if you're particularly clever, whether you could do a screen record with audio, perhaps, and then you could have a second recording of that, which you can download and then edit and then take some clips out and then rebroadcast those. Do you think that'll work? Or maybe if you did Periscope audio track and did a screen record with the audio, then you'd get the waveform, and then you could take some clips out of that and then retweet those again through social media of your previous live stream, even though it was pre-recorded, through your screen record in iOS. Am I getting a little bit too complicated? But I certainly think there's a bit of mileage there, and it's going to be really interesting to see a little bit of traction and whether or not that's going to increase viewer numbers.
I think it's interesting, Peter, as you say, because I actually was testing this out. So the screenshots that you see are actually from something that I saw on my timeline. And there is a prompt to say when you first see it, this was actually on iOS, to kind of go back to the top of your stream. But I wonder though, how many people actually hit going back to the top of their stream. I know I don't very often in terms of looking for the latest things at the top. But I do think the idea that you've got there of how you might record something and then do it as a replay, we've talked about that many times, and there's lots of tools you can do that. And you can do that also in terms of, let's say, using Periscope Producer to be able to do a replay of that content. I actually wonder if the person that I caught doing a live stream was doing that themselves, because lo and behold, they were there first thing this morning. I actually haven't gone in and watched the live stream, but actually the other thing I've just done is I went and checked again, just going live on the show today, and guess what? That same person is live at the moment. So I have to say that there's definitely an opportunity there in terms of if you're going to actually do live streams directly on Twitter or on Periscope, but also in terms of, as Peter said, to actually share content that you've already pre-recorded. Just be transparent and let people know that it actually is a replay of some content. But interesting thought you've got there, Peter. One to definitely experiment with.
And also amongst the news headlines this week, Hangouts Meets, Hangout Meets adds live streaming for up to 100,000 participants. Boy, oh boy, it's going to be like a Tower of Babel there, isn't it? Well, it was announced last year, in case you're thinking I thought this was a news sequence. But actually, it is starting to roll out now. So this is particularly for things like company-wide meetings and other events where people need to tune in and watch, but not necessarily participate. So it's a kind of one-to-many, more kind of broadcast, rather than communication and interaction. At the moment, it's limited to the G Suite Enterprise, and it means that users or those users, and requires that organisers enable live streaming on a calendar meeting and also invite participants as well. And it's also available to G Suite Enterprise for education customers and free licenses not eligible for recordings or live streamings. So there are a few caveats there about who can use them under what kind of circumstances, but another kind of arsenal. If you thought Google Hangouts was kind of dying a little bit of a death, it's done something to help reinvigorate that particular market, particularly for business users and education and things like that. So I can see perhaps some really good kind of user case studies for remote broadcasting, remote teaching and training and education, as well as a company boss giving out a company-wide announcement, for example, about maybe a change in direction for the company or annual results or something like that, or new training or new initiative or things to that, issues of that effect. So a couple of reasonably big stories there, both for Twitter and for Google Hangouts Meet, topping our news story sequence this week.
So thank you so for joining us if you've just done so here for Livestream Insiders. My name's Krishna Day. I'm one of the co-hosts, and you were just listening then to Peter Stewart. And our goal is always to give you the best practice tools, technologies and tips. We've got a great app coming up for you a little bit later on that works on desktop and on mobile, and it's going to help you in terms of repurposing your content, particularly when you need different sizes of content for your social media channels, in terms of taking that video and actually having it available for, let's say, Instagram stories or Facebook stories, or for other platforms that you actually might want to share it to. So we've got a news item here for you in terms of a little bit of a case study as well. And what you'll be able to do is find all the links to the resources a little bit later on. But the story is actually about whether or not video is the holy grail, as it's described in the article, of influencer marketing. Now, influencer marketing has been getting a lot of media coverage of late, particularly if you're in Europe, where there's been some changes in terms of what's required and some investigations. If you're in the US, for example, you've also got lots of investigations there about what influencers are doing, and that's about disclosures. But we'll come on to that a little bit later on. But the essence of the article is saying that basically, because of the growth of importance of video, and what I'd say is when you read the article, it refers back to an information graphic. Just take care in terms of when you're looking at data like that, because I noticed one or two things are not the most up to date in terms of the specs, in terms of what's going on in statistics. But the idea is the fact of, we know that video is so important. And we would obviously argue that live video is very important, and we've seen the growth in that, and also the growth across different platforms. Like you can go live on Instagram, which you couldn't do a year or so ago. You've got Facebook Watch that's rolled out. You're seeing a lot of traction now on platforms like Twitch, and there have been other platforms that have actually been announced over certainly the last 18 months. But it also talks about how important the influencer marketing is, and how that can support you in terms of supporting your goals. Now remember, influencer marketing isn't any different to what we've had for hundreds of years. There's always been people who've actually endorsed products, endorsed services. The change that we've seen, though, is that any one of us, no matter how small that our networks are online, actually can be an influencer. So let's take, for example, one of my teenage daughters. They see something, and this has actually happened to them. They see a piece of content from an organisation advertising something that's going to be new in terms of a product. They decide to get their pocket money together or their part-time job money together and make a purchase. They then share it on their social network, and then they actually see all of their friends respond to that. So my daughter, even though she's got hardly anybody who's actually connected to her in terms of digitally online, is actually influencing people in her network by actually them seeing the content. So what we've seen also is some really interesting articles over the summer talking about, is influencer marketing certainly the new summer job for Gen Z, or Gen Z as you might describe them, in terms of is that the way that actually young people are going to get employment these days. But anyway, the article goes on and actually talks about, why don't you marry and put those things together in terms of the importance of influencer marketing, but also the importance of video. Now, I've seen that happen quite a lot in terms of in brands and organizations that I follow. We've also seen, not necessarily live video, but we've seen, people actually being influencing their community around brands, for example, on Snapchat. Certainly for a good number of years, because brands have found it very hard to build traction on Snapchat unless, of course, you're a big publisher. But in terms of, certainly Instagram live takeovers I've seen, partnering in terms of on Facebook. Now be careful when you're actually using Facebook properties, because you need to make sure you actually have that tag that identifies that it's a partnership. So make sure you're watching out for brand guidelines in terms of on the platforms you're on. Not all of them actually work in that same way, but Facebook is very, very specific. Even putting the hashtag ad in terms of on your content on Facebook is not sufficient. You actually get them, and I've seen this happen. People, will actually get notifications from Facebook to say you will not have this content shown in the newsfeed because you actually haven't used, the connection tool there in terms of that brand connection. And also we've seen on YouTube, for example, where organizations have been stung by the fact that they've worked with influencers and those influencers haven't disclosed that it's sponsored content, and that needs to be right up at the top in terms of it needs to be able to be visible. So for example, on YouTube, if you're going live there, as you're probably aware, there's a headline, but there's also about 2 lines of content that people will see before you actually have to click to see more information. Certainly all the regulations would say you need to be able to have that being visible. So I think really interested in terms of the question for us all to address. If we're using video content in terms of in our own organization, in terms of live video content, are you actually doing so in terms of partnering with influencers? And if you're an influencer, are you actually looking at brand partnerships that you can do, and actually making sure that it's not just articles, blog posts, and video content? Certainly from Peter and I, we'd actually really recommend that you explore in terms of using live video. So useful article for you to have a look at. It was in Forbes. They link back to some other resources. Just a word of warning from me, be careful when you're actually looking at the stats there. You might just want to make sure you've got the most up-to-date stats, because it was referenced in an infographic. But that's today's story in terms of thinking about how you might partner with influencers, or how you as an influencer might partner with brands in terms of being able to get more reach for your content.
And some really interesting articles coming out of Forbes.com on all sorts of issues to do with modern technology, whether it be live streaming or pre-recorded video or voice technology and things like that. I've noticed quite a few over the past several weeks. So we'd like to finish with a top tool, and let me tell you about a tool where you can upload landscape video and make vertical video to export. And it's got quite a clever algorithm as well. It can work out what it thinks is the best bit of the video and that particular scene, which should be made vertical. What it does away with the vertical lines on either side. So it can take a 16:9 film that you may have done maybe a live stream with, crop it and eliminate those black bars. And it automatically splits the video into different shots, and you can choose whether or not you're going to accept its suggestions. So, for example, it'll work out face recognition and object recognition. If you've got two people standing side by side, it'll also work out which of those faces is actually talking and will suggest the crop goes on that person rather than the person who is listening or is alongside them, but also looking to the camera as well. And of course, once you've made your actual edits regarding your horizontal video into vertical video, then you can export it. But more than that, also you can do some in and out points as well. So if you've got, say, a 5-minute video, which you've reversioned from horizontal to vertical, then you can actually just choose to have maybe a 20-second clip, and you'll set an in point and an out point and just export that little section in the middle. There's subtitling and there's branding as well, which also makes it, of course, really good for Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all sorts of things too. So it's really, really interesting. They call some of these features smart crop and trim. They get subtitles and logos, and then you can download or upload, and you can just export certain sections as well. And it is free. Well, after a fashion. So you can get one particular version which is free, but it is very, very basic. You can put in subtitles and branding. It only gives you one shot per video and only a 2-minute video, and it's obviously only 720p, but that is for free. You can upload, and this is where I think their structure for the pricing is a little bit kind of unusual, a little bit strange. You can have 24-hour access. It's a European company, so these are in euros, but $7.95 for 24-hour access. You get your Ultra HD, and you've got unlimited shots and unlimited video size, but only for 24 hours. You've got to do all that work in 24 hours and upload and download and all the rest of it, just for 24 hours for $7.95, unlimited for $39.95, so €40 a month. Then you've got unlimited storage and technical support as well. So slightly different and unusual pricing structure there, but maybe worth you looking into it. Okay, I'll tell you what it's called. It's called crop.video. It's available on iOS and Android and desktop as well. www.crop.video. Krishna, have you had a chance to check it out and to have a little look? There's some really interesting ideas there, I thought, and some interesting kind of features.
Yeah, I did test it, and that's what you can see the screenshot from. I actually just tested the free version, and I think it's really interesting and really a potentially powerful tool, because a lot of people don't necessarily have budgets when they're just getting started and they want to explore it. You can actually add your own watermark, and you can add, as you said, in terms of your own content there, in terms of your titles. What I thought was really interesting that I don't see on many other tools like it, whereas you can not only import your titles, but you can also export them. So, for example, on Facebook, at the end of a live stream, one of the things that you might do is use the titles, or use the SRT file or the captions that you might have created elsewhere. That's what I typically use, upload them. But if you create captions within Facebook for your live stream, you actually can't easily export them. But the benefit of this is the fact that it's going to really kind of hard code those captions onto your video. And why is that important? Well, particularly on platforms like LinkedIn, lots of people are posting video content there, let's say in square format, which you can easily take that landscape content and make it square, download it, but you've actually got those captions burnt on so people don't have to turn on their mobile phone audio to be able to see what you're talking about. So I think it's got lots of potential. It's a little basic at the moment in terms of, say, captions, and I reached out to the developer and they've actually had some feedback, and so they're really interested in terms of feedback from people. So if you do have a bit of time, I haven't personally tested it on mobile, but it is meant to be mobile optimized for you to be able to use. There isn't an app that you need to use with it. I used it on desktop, I used it on Firefox on a PC, and it actually worked really well. As I said, I'd like to see some differences with the captions, and that's something that they're going to be rolling out in a future release. But as it's a startup, I'm sure that people, would love to kind of maybe get your hands on it, test it for free, and do give the developers some feedback. Because I know it's really hard to get traction sometimes, and I think they were pretty happy that we were going to be talking about them here today, Peter. But yeah, really worthwhile testing out if you're looking for a free tool to put captions on, and particularly if you like working on desktop. There's not often tools that come out, because my watermark's on that video, but theirs isn't, and that's fantastic. Now, whether that free version will stay like that forever, I think it would be great if they could actually maintain it that way, because it will get people to start to think about using their tool. And as I said, completely free, not watermarked, really easy to use.
Excellent. Krishna, thank you for testing that out for us, and hopefully you've enjoyed our new format. Slightly shorter than before, a bit more punchy, fewer items, but hopefully it's saving you a little bit of time when you're watching or when you're listening to Livestream Insiders. We thought we'd make a bit of a change as we go into the new season, episode 150. Don't forget to follow us at LS Insiders. And also all of the links that we've talked about in this week's episode will be available a little bit later on. I'm Peter Stewart, and together with Krishna Day, we are the Livestream Insiders team. And we'll be back in another 7 days with another programme telling you all about the tech and the updates and some case studies. And also a really interesting app that we've discovered as well, which may help you in your digital live streaming, or to help you reversion your previous live stream that's now become a pre-recorded video. Until then, thanks very much indeed for watching. Goodbye for now. Bye-bye.